I went through all of our tomatoes on the website yesterday and like updated pictures, and there were some old pixelated pictures, and we had 97 varieties of tomatoes on our website. Isn't that crazy? And there's like tons I'm like, oh, I can't believe we don't have this one or that one, or there's just so many. Okay, so I want to share with you today how we grow tomatoes from seed. So first of all, we're going to talk about a potting soil. And this is soil I made out of compost, sand, and eggshells, and a little bit of kelp. And we've got another video that shows exactly how to do that. And we make our own potting soil. And sometimes when you do that, you get things like weeds in your potting soil, but that's fine. It means your soil is alive, and you can always weed them out later. So that's starting point number one. And the second one is your seeds. And so this is what tomato seeds look like. And they're pretty small, but not like ridiculously small. This is a variety called Barry's Crazy Cherry, bred by Brad Gates. It's a really cool, productive yellow cherry tomato. It makes these clusters of like 50 fruits. I accidentally spilled a couple in there, which I don't want to do because it makes it hard to keep track of what you're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm growing them on these heat mats, which you can see over here. If I put my hand on here, this is warm. And I leave this one empty for a cat that lives in this greenhouse, and he sleeps on there at night. If I don't leave an empty spot, then he will try and sleep on, and that's why I have the screen over there. Those are all peppers planted in those flats. So I cover it with a screen that keeps birds off it, but also keeps cats from getting cozy on my very carefully planted seeds. So when I'm done with this, I'm going to put this on a heat mat. I have another one here for tomatoes. And the reason I want to do that is right now the ambient temperature in this greenhouse is, well, because we just opened the door and it's like late morning, it's 74 degrees in here. However, at night, it's going to go down to probably 45. So the average temp, if the seeds are just hanging out here in the soil, they're germinating in response to the average temperature. And I can feel a cool breeze at my back, so it's not actually 74 degrees. After a few hours of the door being open, it'll be a lot cooler. So tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and other heat-loving crops want at least 70 degrees, ideally closer to 80 degrees for germinating. So by using the heat mats, and bottom heat basically is what we provide, then that soil will warm up. So these trays, just to show you what I'm using, I have a bottom tray. We call these 10 by 20s that's slatted. And that just basically makes this a little sturdier to move around. And then this one is a perforated tray. So it actually has holes in the bottom so that water can pour through. I found this is the best combination for me. I'm sure you can find other ones that work. And so then what I do is I just use a little stick like this, and I make a little groove. I'm going to make a couple of them here. And I plant them, you know, like 1.5 inches or so apart, 1.25 inches. You can see I'm not measuring. I'm just creating these little furrows in here. You could use your finger too, but it's a little messier. So I like using a piece of wood like that. And then I have a nice spot for my seeds to go. Because for me, I'm growing multiple varieties of tomatoes and I want to keep them all separate. So here I've got my Barry's Crazy Cherry. I'm going to go ahead and put my little marker in there. And I've pointed this out in other videos, but if you want to carefully pour seeds from the packet, you can open it and make a crease. And what that does is, as I tap it, see how the seeds kind of line up, and I can be a little more precision about that. If that doesn't work for you, so I'll demonstrate some of that. See how I can very carefully meter these out. And what I'm doing is I only have so much space on my heat mat, so I start my peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes on the heat mats, and then once these are about 1 inch tall, I'll gently take them out of these flats and I'll put them in their individual pots. and let them grow like that, because these will get big. But I don't have enough room to have heat mats for the amount of pots. Like you can see, I just planted about 100 tomato seeds there. And that's about how much I'll need to reproduce this variety from seed later. And then I'll come through carefully, just use my finger and cover them. They only need to be about a 1/4 inch deep. And so that's the careful packet method. If you don't like that, another way you could do this. And so check these ones out. See how these seeds are bigger than what we were looking at before? And I'll pour some of these out just so you can see. And even though tomatoes are all basically related, so I'm gonna kind of just go like that. See how these ones are smaller? See the difference there between these two?
Yep.
And so, because these ones are from a cherry tomato, whereas these are from a large variety. I gotta keep this straight. I'll set that over there, and I have plenty of those. This one's called Ananas Noir, and it's a large kind of heirloom slicer, so they tend to be a little bit bigger seeds. And just in case you want to see another way to do it, I'm going to carefully just pinch these in little clusters and plant them. And it's fine if there's a group growing together. There's enough soil in here where for the 3 weeks or so that they'll grow here on the heat mats, that they'll have enough room before I put them in pots. So see, that works. I feel like I have more precision by using the packet, so that's the way I tend to do it. So I'm going to put my unplanted seed back in here, and you can see there's a little label on there, but by now I've gummed that up. I'm going to show you a trick that I use to keep the seeds from falling out. I just dog-ear the back, and then they don't fall out. So then I'm going to cover these ones up, and it's really important to label them. So for me, I put the variety name on there, but I also add the date on them, because then I can come back and check on them in, let's say, 5 or 7 days. I don't need to put the year because I know what that is. I don't need to put tomatoes because I know how to identify tomato seedlings. But the date, so let's say I come back a week later and it's March 9th or 10th and they're not up. I might gently dig down in there. Let's say I'd planted tomato seeds in there and kind of like look around and be like, are you sprouting? Or is the seed old and it just never grew? So the date's really helpful to help you determine how they're doing and if they've grown or not. So you can see I'm going to do a lot of varieties in tomatoes in here. Sometimes with some things I'll alternate a tomato and a pepper, a tomato, a pepper, a tomato, because the seedlings look really differently. And that way, in case, you know, one of the seeds somehow like grew at a weird angle and is growing over there, that I can keep my variety straight. But labeling them well, and then I'll put them on the heat mat, and then I'll cover them with screens of some sort to keep things from getting into it. Because if you use all this effort, then you want to make sure to not have it get messed up. And then, can we do a little pause? See that heat mat that's down there? I feel like it would be helpful to show folks what this is. So this is a heat mat. This one's a 4-foot one, and I can fit 4 trays on this in this kind of fashion, like that. And we've got all kind of information. I've had this for a number of years, so it's a little faded. This Jumpstart brand, and we plug it in over here. One thing I'll do when I have heat mats, once we get into sunny weather, is I'll plug them all into the same power strip, and then if it's a sunny day and I'm opening up the greenhouse, I'll turn it off because there's no need to be using electricity, and then just remember to turn it on at night, or you could use a timer. But it really makes a difference doing this, and once again, you're going to be doing this technique for tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. You can also start things like zinnias or other plants that want warm temperatures, cucumbers, melons. I don't tend to do those this way unless I have very limited old seed. Then I want to make sure to optimize things. So if your seed is older, and that's one thing on your packets, it's important to write down the year that the seed was grown. So this one is 2019, which means this seed is 7 years old. which is getting, it's not too bad for a tomato, but you ideally want fresh seed. Like this one I grew last year. So I always put, you know, obviously we're a farm, so we have all kind of details on there. But this was grown in 2025. Really helpful to know. And if you have packets, let's say from another company, a lot of times they would not put it on there. Here's an old one from this company that's no longer really around, Abundant Life. Yellow stuffer. See how there's no date on there? Even on the back. It doesn't even tell you. So I should have wrote it on there, but I didn't. But, you know, keeping track, because for us, we want to know that kind of information. Like this one, this variety tomato Willamette from 2016, this 10-year-old seed. I know it'll grow from experience. It's not going to grow as quickly, but if you optimize everything, indoors, heat, perfect amount of water, protection from birds and everything, then it'll grow. So this really will help you be successful. We'll do a follow-up later when it's time to pot these up into the individual pots, and you can see the various sizes I've found work well for peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes, which are all in the same plant family and all require similar approaches to growing them. So that's how you really rock growing hot weather crops, and I've tried all different kind of ways, and hopefully you learned enough from this so that you're successful growing things from seed that require heat.